This is Alethe Denis, and I'm a senior security consultant on the Red Team here at Bishop Fox, specializing in social engineering and the adversarial mindset and the psychology behind what makes scams and social engineering successful against human beings. We focus on the human side of security when we do our social engineering engagements, and recently, 23andMe data has been put up for sale on the internet. It gave me an opportunity to think about how I would leverage this information in an attack were I a malicious scammer or an adversary that wanted to extort people, which is, of course, something that we do not do as ethical hackers. But if I were in a position where I had this information and had the opportunity to use it, I could create some really compelling pretexts, essentially masquerading as someone pretending to have access to confidential information or even impersonating an individual using the information that I found out about them, their family, their genetics, their ancestry, their relationship to other people, the year they were born, the maiden name of their mother, which may be a question or answer to a security question. These types of things can create really compelling pretexts, which makes it more believable in a scenario where I'm trying to encourage someone and lead them to make a decision or take an action that's not really in their best interest, which is ultimately the definition of social engineering. Giving someone the impression that I have access to information or that I know enough about them that I must be who I say I am is exactly what this kind of information can do when it's weaponized in a social engineering attack. Most people think about a DNA collecting site and they immediately worry about the sci fi. Like, is somebody going to clone me? Well, most attackers don't have a human 3D printer in their basement, but what they can do is leverage this information to gain access to other accounts. They can segment the data to reveal people who are part of a specific group. If I want to target a specific demographic, then I can section this data off and create a custom pretext that would be more compelling to that group of individuals. There's a lot of information included in these sites about connections to other people that can be leveraged in some really scary attacks. Things like fake ransom kidnapping and other attacks where they will typically call somebody who is older and pretend to be a child or grandchild in trouble, or say that a child or grandchild has been in an accident and try to extort money for fake medical charges that need to be paid immediately before this person can receive help at a hospital. This type of information even included things like locations. And if I were going to create, stepping into the shoes of a malicious attacker, a campaign to try to extort money out of someone using their location data, their name, their familial connections, and those people's names. I could figure out what schools their children go to pretty easily on social media, and then say that I took their kid from school that morning and insinuate that I was holding them captive. Meanwhile, the child is completely safe and at school, and I'm hundreds of miles away. All of these attacks are very scary. Most of the time, we can tell that they are fake, that they're not real, because they don't get all the information right. Maybe they say the wrong school or they don't have the right name. But in this case, this attacker would have every element of your family tree in some cases for 1.4 million people. That's a massive data set. They could even go through these and we could identify very high profile individuals at companies and use this data to try to gain access to those people's accounts by pretending to be them or influencing them to click on something by saying it came from one of their children or it came from a family member to their work email. All of these types of data sets released through breach data, when put together, create a very compelling picture of what that person's life is. And it makes it easy not only to understand what motivates them, but to craft a pretext that would be extremely compelling and that would encourage that individual to take an action from an emotional place before they had the time to sit and analyze it. So adding all of these bits of information that make something seem more compelling, more accurate, and more authentic could give me, as an attacker, a much higher rate of success. So, in closing, you always want to make sure that you are using complex passwords, that you are using a unique password on every online account that you have, and that where it's available, you are enabling at minimum two-factor authentication, but hopefully multi-factor authentication, and ideally universal second factor, where that's available using a piece of hardware that would make your account extremely resistant to phishing. But above and beyond that, you always want to make sure that you take the time to evaluate a request when you feel like you are going to have an emotional response, and to take the time to authenticate that request, that user, that email is coming from a genuine place in order to make sure that you keep your own accounts, your own assets safe.